The Korans, a peaceful alien race, were living in a galaxy they once believed to be safe. They had no enemies, just the stars and the endless mysteries of space. But all of that changed when the Zinther Empire, a brutal, AI-controlled force, arrived. The Zinther were merciless. Their war machines, driven by cold, calculating artificial intelligence, tore through entire civilizations without hesitation. They did not negotiate, nor did they show any mercy. One by one, planets fell. Entire species were wiped out. And now, the Korans, whose peaceful world had been untouched for centuries, were the Zinther's latest target. The first strike came from the skies. Massive ships appeared without warning, and cities fell under their shadow. The Korans had never seen such destruction before. The ground shook, the air burned with the heat of burning buildings, and their skies were filled with the sounds of death. The Zinther's machines didn't need to sleep, eat, or think. They just destroyed. No matter how hard the Korans fought back, they were no match for the superior technology of the Zinther. Despair began to settle in. The Korans had nowhere to turn. They sent out messages to every corner of the galaxy, begging for help, but the galaxy was silent. No one came. In the face of certain defeat, the Korans had one last hope, an ancient signal from Earth, a planet that had once been a thriving hub of life and human civilization, now thought to be lost to time. The Korans had heard stories of humans, legendary beings who had once been the dominant species of their galaxy. But no one knew what had happened to them. Earth had vanished. Yet, a signal, faint and barely audible, still echoed from the depths of space. It was humanity's last whisper, perhaps a forgotten relic, or maybe a lifeline. Lyra, a young Koran scout, was chosen for the dangerous mission. Her people were running out of time. The Zinther were closing in, and they needed help. The message from Earth was weak, but it was enough to spark hope. Lyra set out alone in her ship, traveling through the dark void, chasing the faint signal. She had heard the legends about humanity, how fierce and resilient they were. If they still existed, perhaps they could help. Perhaps they could save the Korans. As Lyra journeyed across the galaxy, the Koran cities continued to burn. The once great cities were reduced to rubble, their people scattered and desperate. The Zinther didn't care about surrender or diplomacy. Their goal was simple, total annihilation. The Korans had no weapons that could stand up to the AI-driven war machines. No shields that could hold the Zinther back. It was only a matter of time before their world would be destroyed. The closer Lyra got to Earth, the more she learned about the devastating consequences of the Zinther's march across the galaxy. The message from Earth began to make more sense. Humans had been here once, a dominant force in the galaxy. But somehow, over time, they had disappeared, leaving only their ruins and whispers behind. Lyra couldn't help but wonder, had Earth been destroyed by the Zinther, or had humanity simply vanished before they could be wiped out? What if no one was left to answer the call? What if Earth was just another memory, lost to time like so many others? Lyra pushed forward, determined to find out. Every minute she spent in space, she grew more anxious. The Zinther were closing in on the Koran's homeworld. Every minute was crucial. The Korans could not survive much longer. The faint signal from Earth became more than just a beacon, it became a symbol of hope. A chance for survival. But what if the humans were not there to help? What if the legends of humanity were nothing more than myths? As Lyra entered the final stretch of her journey, her ship was suddenly shaken by a series of explosions. The Korans had sent out one last distress signal, hoping someone would hear it. Lyra knew that the Koran situation was dire. Her people were dying, and the Zinther's war machines were not far behind. She had no idea if Earth was still inhabited, but she couldn't give up. Not yet. If there was even the slightest chance that humanity could save them, she would find it. The further she traveled, the more she realized the magnitude of the situation. The fate of an entire species rested on the possibility that humanity might still exist, and that they could fight. But as her ship neared Earth's coordinates, a growing realization began to set in: this wasn't just about the Quran's survival. It was about humanity's return to the galaxy. Would they be the hope everyone had waited for, or had they vanished long ago, leaving only the echoes of their once great civilization? Lyra's heart raced as she approached Earth's location. The coordinates were clear, but what would she find when she arrived? Would there be an ancient city full of humanity's survivors, waiting to take back their place among the stars? Or would Earth be a dead world, a forgotten memory of a species that had once ruled the galaxy? Just as Lyra was about to lose hope, her ship's sensors detected something. It wasn't a fleet of ships or even a thriving city. But there, deep beneath the Earth's surface, was a signal, a faint heartbeat, still alive. Humanity hadn't vanished. They were alive, waiting to be awakened. Lyra couldn't believe it. She had found them. Humanity was not gone. And with their strength, the Qurans had a chance to survive. But what kind of humanity would she find? Could these ancient humans still fight, or would they be as lost and broken as the Qurans feared? With her heart pounding, Lyra began her descent to Earth, praying that the humans would be their salvation. The fate of the Quran species, and perhaps the galaxy itself, rested on the shoulders of the furious humans who would soon awaken. Lyra's heart raced as her ship descended onto the surface of Earth. The planet seemed abandoned, its cities covered in dust, and the once thriving world now appeared empty. She landed near a long-forgotten facility, buried beneath the surface, where humanity's last hope had been preserved, a cryochamber. Inside, human soldiers and civilians alike had been placed in deep sleep, awaiting a time when the galaxy needed them most. The signal Lyra had followed led her here, to this secret place, and now, she was about to wake humanity up from centuries of dormancy. As Lyra entered the cryo facility, she marveled at the eerie silence. Rows upon rows of human pods were neatly arranged, all of them cold and lifeless. Her eyes scanned the room, and she finally found the control panel that would activate the cryochambers. With a trembling hand, Lyra pressed a button. One by one, the pods began to open, releasing a rush of cold vapor into the air. The first human to emerge was General Aaron Ward, a man whose eyes were filled with confusion, but also a deep fire that seemed to flicker even in the face of his uncertain surroundings. He was disoriented, groggy from his long sleep, but as he looked around, the realization set in. His world, his home, was long gone. The human race was not the powerful empire it once was. It had been forgotten, buried under layers of time. And now, the few survivors of his species were called upon once again. When the others began to wake, it was clear that the humans were not simply confused or lost in time. They were angry. Deeply angry. As they stepped out of their cryopods, they found themselves surrounded by the ruins of their civilization and the horrors of an unknown enemy. The world they knew was no more. They had been asleep, left in cryosleep for far too long, while the galaxy had descended into chaos. And the worst part was the fact that the Qurans, the peaceful alien species they had once heard of in old tales, were now on the verge of extinction, crushed by the ruthless Zinther Empire. General Ward, ever the leader, quickly assessed the situation. He realized that the Qurans needed help, but what struck him the most was the sight of the Zinther, those cold, heartless machines that had wiped out entire species across the galaxy. The humans were shocked to learn how little they had left of their once mighty fleet, but they weren't afraid. They had survived. And they would fight. Ward stood before the others, his voice strong and commanding. "We've been asleep for too long, and while we slumbered, others suffered. But we are awake now. And we will not stand by while the Qurans perish. We will fight." His words echoed through the cryochamber, and as if on cue, the other humans nodded. Their fury was burning hot, their resolve stronger than ever. The humans may have been asleep for centuries, but their legacy of strength and resilience had not faded. The rage inside them was like a beast waking from a long slumber. The people who had once been powerful conquerors were now warriors once more. They had been forgotten by the galaxy, but they would not be forgotten for long. The humans were back, and they were furious. General Ward wasted no time. He began assembling his team of seasoned soldiers and scientists, quickly moving to secure the remaining weapons and resources. He was ready to take the fight to the Zinther. The anger of his people was not just a reaction to the loss of their world, it was a force that could be harnessed. Ward understood that to defeat the Zinther, they would need more than just rage, they needed discipline, tactics, and above all, unity. The humans began to organize quickly, training and preparing for battle. Ward took charge of the military training, teaching his soldiers how to fight with precision. The once primitive warriors of Earth, who had relied on simple technology, now had access to advanced weapons. Lyra watched in awe as the humans set to work. They showed no fear, no hesitation. Their anger was channeled into focus, and every human on the team became a formidable force. Meanwhile, the Khorans, under Lyra's guidance, began to train as well. The humans taught them how to use cloaking devices and high-tech weapons, tools they had never seen before. The Khorans were fast learners, eager to fight back and save their people, but they had never faced anything like the Zinther. The machines were relentless, their AI mindless and unstoppable. But the humans had a plan. Ward and his team taught the Khorans advanced combat tactics. They trained the Khorans to fight together as a unit, turning their peaceful nature into a weapon. Humans and Khorans sparred side by side in simulated battles. It was clear to Lyra that humanity's fury was contagious. The Khorans were no longer the peaceful race they once were, they had transformed into fierce fighters, their bonds with humanity growing stronger every day. Lyra had never seen anything like it. The Khorans, with their natural agility and intelligence, paired with humanity's advanced technology and ruthless determination, were becoming an unstoppable force. They trained in hand-to-hand combat, practiced using cloaking devices in real-life missions, and learned to work as one. The humans were not only preparing for battle, they were preparing for war. The weapons the humans brought with them were a marvel of design. From advanced energy rifles that could take down enemy war machines with a single shot, to cloaking devices that made their ships invisible to enemy radar, humanity had everything they needed to fight the Zinther. The most dangerous weapon of all, however, was the fury that burned in their hearts. The Zinther had underestimated humanity. They thought they were nothing more than a forgotten species, lost to time. But they had underestimated the power of the human spirit. As the days passed, the humans and Khorans grew stronger together. The fury that had once only been a spark had now become an inferno. The humans were no longer just the survivors of a lost world, they were warriors, reborn and ready to take on the Zinther. And Lyra knew that with their help, the Khorans had a chance. The Zinther had no idea what was coming for them. They had awoken the fury of humanity, and nothing could stand in its way. In the final moments of their training, General Ward looked at Lyra and the assembled fighters. "This is it," he said, his voice hard and determined. "The Zinther will know what happens when they threaten the innocent. We fight for Earth, for the Khorans, and for the future of every peaceful race in the galaxy. Our fury will be our greatest weapon." The time for preparation was over. The humans were ready. And their fury would soon be unleashed on the Zinther Empire. The Zinther Empire had launched its most powerful attack yet. Their fleet, massive and unstoppable, descended upon the Khoran homeworld, crushing any defenses in their path. The sky above the Khorans was filled with the terrifying sight of Zinther warships, colossal metal beasts that blotted out the sun. These AI-driven war machines were merciless. They were designed to destroy, and they did so without hesitation. The Khoran's remaining defenses stood no chance against the Zinther's overwhelming power. The planet cities, already shattered by previous assaults, were now on the brink of complete destruction. The Khorans watched in helpless horror as their world was torn apart. Desperation settled in, there was no hope left. The Zinther had come to finish the job. Their initial assault was swift, and the Korans could do nothing but retreat further into their shattered world. But just as all seemed lost, a new force entered the fray: humanity. The humans, who had spent weeks preparing and training, had learned everything they needed to fight back. They had cloaking technology, advanced weapons, and a ferocity that the Zinther had never encountered. General Aaron Ward, who had spent countless hours strategizing with his team, gave the order to strike. With a nod, the humans launched their first counterattack. Their warships, cloaked in invisibility, slipped undetected into the heart of the Zinther fleet. The Zinther, confident in their technological superiority, had not expected such an ambush. The humans' attack was swift and brutal, exactly as General Ward had planned. The cloaked warships emerged from the shadows and unleashed a barrage of laser fire, tearing through the Zinther ships with precision. The Zinther's AI-controlled defenses couldn't react fast enough. The humans' fury was on full display as they wiped out entire sections of the Zinther fleet in a matter of minutes. Their strikes were relentless, and the Zinther were left reeling. On the ground, the battle raged in the streets. The Korans, though weakened by their previous losses, were now fighting alongside the humans. It was a brutal scene. Close-quarters combat against the Zinther's relentless AI soldiers. These machines were programmed for one purpose: to kill. But the humans fought with an intensity that the machines couldn't comprehend. Each human soldier was a force unto themselves, moving with speed and precision, tearing through the Zinther ranks. Lyra fought alongside them, her heart pounding as she engaged the enemy. The Korans had never seen combat like this before, but they adapted quickly. The humans taught them the importance of tactics, coordination, and the sheer will to survive. Together, they cut through the Zinther forces, but the battle was far from over. The machines were relentless, and they kept coming, wave after wave. The fighting was fierce. Lyra's heart raced as she fought through the chaos, her every instinct focused on survival. But it wasn't just the enemy she had to worry about, it was the soldiers around her. In the heat of the battle, she heard the scream of a soldier falling beside her. Bonner, a human soldier who had become her closest friend during the training, had taken a fatal blow. Lyra's heart skipped a beat. She turned to see him fall to the ground, his eyes wide in disbelief, the life draining from him. Bonner had been a fierce fighter, brave, strong, and determined. He had taught Lyra how to hold her ground in battle, how to fight with everything she had. He was more than just a soldier, he was a friend, a brother in arms. And now, he was gone. Lyra's world seemed to crumble as she watched Bonner's lifeless body. The reality of the war hit her hard. This was no longer just a fight for survival, it was personal. Bonner's death was a stark reminder of the price of war. And it wasn't just Bonner. The humans had lost many of their own in this first assault, and with each loss, the fire inside them burned hotter. General Ward's voice came through the comms, steady and unyielding. "We don't stop. For Bonner, for everyone we've lost. We keep fighting." His words were a rallying cry, and the humans rallied around it. But for Lyra, it was more than just a command. She felt the weight of the loss in her soul. She had to keep going, not just for the Korans, but for Bonner. She had to avenge him. The Zinther, though taken by surprise, regrouped quickly and launched a counterattack. The sky above the battlefield was filled with the sound of explosions, as the two forces clashed once more. The humans, enraged by the loss of their comrades, fought with a fury that could not be matched. Their speed and precision were unparalleled as they tore through the Zinther forces. But no matter how many they cut down, the machines kept coming. On the ground, the battle intensified. Lyra and her team fought through the streets, taking down Zinther soldiers one by one. But every victory came at a cost. With each fallen Zinther soldier, there was another human or Koran soldier to mourn. The toll of war was heavy. Lyra's heart ached as she saw more and more of her comrades fall. But through it all, she remembered Bonner, and his loss pushed her forward. The Zinthers' initial attack had been devastating, but the humans' counterstrike had shaken their confidence. The first strike was a victory, but it was just the beginning. The war was far from over. As the battle raged on, Lyra knew one thing for certain: she would fight for every fallen soldier. She would fight for Bonner. The Zinther had taken so much, but they would not take their future. The Korans and humans were united in their cause, and they would not rest until the Zinther were defeated. The war had become deeply personal, and the fury that burned in humanity's heart would not be quenched. The first strike was only the beginning. And for the Zinther, it would be their first lesson in just how dangerous humanity could be. The Zinther Empire, having underestimated humanity's resilience, was furious. The humans' unexpected resistance had shaken them to their core. No longer could they dismiss humanity as an insignificant species. Their AI-controlled war machines, which had been so efficient in their previous conquests, were now being pushed to their limits. The Zinther were no longer content with their standard tactics; they needed to escalate the war. The war had reached its breaking point. The Zinther Empire, once an unstoppable force, was now on the brink of collapse. But they would not surrender easily. The humans, together with the Korans, had one last chance to end the war once and for all. This final offensive would decide the fate of the galaxy. It would be humanity's last stand, and they would give everything to ensure victory. The humans had exhausted nearly all their resources, but they were not without hope. They had proven time and again that they could outthink and outfight the Zinther, and now, with the Korans at their side, they were ready for the ultimate assault on the heart of the Zinther Empire, their homeworld. The final battle would be the fiercest yet. Orbital bombardment, the battle for the Zinther capital. As humanity's fleet, cloaked and invisible, descended upon the Zinther homeworld, the first wave of destruction began. The Zinther capital, a towering metropolis filled with their advanced technology and AI-driven infrastructure, trembled under the force of the bombardment. Cloaked human warships released devastating payloads, raining destruction from above as they evaded the Zinther's defenses. The Zinther had never faced an enemy that could strike without being seen, and now their capital was crumbling beneath them. The orbital bombardment was only the beginning. From the ashes of the Zinther's cities, humanity's forces would land and fight their way to victory. The camera zooms in on the destruction, showing the human ships from a close-up perspective as they fire upon the city below. The Zinther's towering spires are reduced to rubble as waves of explosions rip through the air. Buildings collapse into the streets, their streets flooded with fire and smoke. Humanity had made its mark, no longer hidden in the shadows, but fighting openly with every ounce of strength they had. Ground assault, humans in the heart of the Zinther city. Once the bombardment softened the enemy's defenses, the humans and Korans began their assault on the ground. The battle moved from the skies to the streets, and the chaos of war enveloped the city. Human soldiers, wearing heavy combat gear and armed with high-tech weapons, fought their way through Zinther-infested districts. The enemy's AI-controlled soldiers, once the unstoppable force that had wiped out entire civilizations, were now struggling to keep up with the brutal efficiency of the human warriors. Hand-to-hand combat scenes unfolded, with humans charging forward, tackling the AI soldiers and using anything they could find as weapons. Guns, knives, and even pieces of debris became tools of war. In one intense sequence, a human soldier uses a wrecked Zinther vehicle to crush a line of AI soldiers, while another soldier fires a series of explosive rounds into a cluster of enemy units. The brutality of the close-quarters combat was palpable. The camera follows the soldiers through the streets, weaving in and out of firefights as explosions light up the ground around them. The humans didn't just fight with weapons, they fought with their raw determination, pushing through impossible odds. They weren't just soldiers, they were the embodiment of human will, an unstoppable force driven by the desire to protect their own and destroy the enemy. The emotional toll, General Ward's sacrifice. As the battle raged on, it became clear that victory was within reach, but the cost would be steep. The Zinther, cornered and desperate, deployed their final defense, the flagship. This was their ultimate weapon, a massive AI-controlled warship capable of wiping out entire fleets. Humanity knew that taking down the flagship was the key to winning the war, but they would need a sacrifice to do it. General Aaron Ward, the leader who had guided humanity through the darkest days of the war, made the ultimate decision. He volunteered to lead a final mission, a suicide run, into the heart of the Zinther flagship. His goal, to destroy the ship and ensure that the Zinther Empire could never recover. The crew was stunned by the general's decision, but they knew this was the only way to guarantee victory. "I'll make sure this war ends, even if I don't make it out," General Ward told his soldiers as he prepared to board the final assault ship. His voice was calm, but his eyes betrayed the gravity of the moment. He knew the risks, and he was willing to face them. The humans' fury, their anger at being awoken from centuries of sleep, their grief over fallen comrades, and their love for the Korans, this all drove him forward. The final blow, Ward's last stand. As General Ward and his crew boarded the assault ship, they made their way toward the Zinther flagship, which loomed ominously in the distance. The final assault was underway, and the human soldiers fought with all the fire and rage they had left. Ward's ship broke through the Zinther defenses, its engines screaming as it plowed through enemy fire. As they neared the flagship, Ward gave the order to deploy the ship's payload, a massive explosive designed to cripple the flagship and end the war. The ship crashed into the flagship's core, its explosion reverberating across the battlefield. A blinding flash filled the screen as the flagship disintegrated in a fiery explosion. The Zinther, with their last hope destroyed, had been defeated. General Ward had made the ultimate sacrifice for his people, and for the galaxy. The aftermath, a hard-won victory. The human soldiers, battered and broken but still standing, looked up at the sky as the flagship burned in the distance. The Zinther Empire was no more, and humanity had emerged victorious. But the victory came at a great cost. General Ward was gone, and many others had fallen alongside him. The war was over, but the wounds it left behind would never fully heal. Lyra, devastated by the loss of her mentor and friend, stood silently among the survivors. She looked around at the wreckage of the Zinther capital, at the devastation they had caused, and felt a strange mix of sorrow and relief. The Korans, though grateful, mourned the destruction of their cities and the loss of countless lives. But they knew that the fight had been necessary. As the humans and Korans began to rebuild, they carried with them the memory of those who had fallen. General Ward's sacrifice would be remembered as the turning point that saved them all. The final assault had been humanity's last stand, but it had also been the moment when they proved that even in the darkest times, hope could still prevail. Humanity had done the impossible. They had not only survived, they had conquered the galaxy's most powerful empire. And the Zinther would never forget the fury of the human race. In response to humanity's counterattack, the Zinther deployed their most powerful weapons, war machines that seemed nearly unstoppable. These AI-driven giants were far superior to anything humanity had seen before. Towering, heavily armored, and armed with devastating weaponry, they were built to crush any opponent. Their massive presence on the battlefield struck fear into the hearts of the Korans and even the humans, who realized just how outmatched they were in terms of sheer numbers and firepower. But humanity's greatest strength was not in their numbers or advanced technology, it was in their anger and resourcefulness. The humans, though outnumbered, had something the Zinther did not, the will to fight for what they loved. The fury that burned inside their hearts was a force of nature, and it drove them to think and act in ways the Zinther could not predict. General Ward, despite the overwhelming odds, refused to back down. "We don't need more soldiers, we need more strategy," he said, his voice sharp with determination. The humans had learned to adapt, to use their limited resources in creative ways. They may not have had the numbers or firepower to compete with the Zinther's latest war machines, but they had something far more dangerous, their knowledge of ancient Earth technology. Lyra, still shaken by the loss of Bonner and the toll of the war, was now fully focused on the task at hand. The humans' ingenuity would be their greatest weapon. They began researching old Earth technologies, long thought obsolete. Among the relics of humanity's past, they found a blueprint for a system that could disable the Zinthor's AI war machines. The key was to exploit a vulnerability in the AI systems that could be traced back to their origins, technology that was familiar to the humans but foreign to the Zinthor. The humans began working tirelessly, reverse engineering this technology and modifying it to suit their needs. They were not building new weapons, they were adapting old ones, using their past to fight in the present. This innovative approach gave them the upper hand in a way the Zinthor could not have foreseen. Lyra watched in awe as the humans set their plan into motion. They hacked into the Zinthor's communications and sent out a signal that disrupted the AI war machine's coordination. For the first time in the war, the Zinthor's once unstoppable forces faltered. With their machines thrown into disarray, the Zinthor fleet became vulnerable. The humans, with their newfound advantage, launched a counterattack. This time, the Zinthor were caught off guard. The humans, in their cloaked ships, slipped into the heart of the enemy fleet once more. The battle raged in space as human warships tore through the disorganized Zinthor forces. The humans were no longer just defending, they were taking the fight to the enemy, striking where the Zinthor thought they were most secure. But the true turning point came when the humans set their sights on the Zinthor flagship, the heart of the Empire's fleet. The Zinthor had been confident that their flagship, with its advanced defenses and AI-controlled systems, would be safe from attack. They were wrong. General Ward led a daring infiltration mission to breach the flagship, a move that seemed impossible given the ship's heavily fortified nature. The humans, knowing they could not face the flagship's might head-on, used their knowledge of the ship's vulnerabilities to their advantage. They infiltrated through the lower decks, sneaking past the Zinthor's AI patrols, who had no way of anticipating such a move. Lyra, now more experienced in combat than ever, was among those who infiltrated the flagship. She felt the weight of the mission in her bones. This was not just about strategy anymore. This was about turning the tide of the entire war. As they made their way through the dark, labyrinthine corridors of the flagship, Lyra felt a strange mixture of fear and exhilaration. Every step they took brought them closer to the heart of the Zinthor Empire, and every moment that passed felt like a countdown to their success or failure. The humans' resolve was unshakable. They had nothing left to lose, and that made them more dangerous than anything the Zinthor had encountered. Finally, they reached their target, the main control room, where the AI systems of the entire fleet were coordinated. Lyra's heart pounded in her chest as they breached the room and planted their sabotage devices. The Zinthor, for the first time, realized that they were not facing a weak and primitive species. They were facing an enemy that could think, adapt, and strike with unrelenting fury. The AI systems began to shut down as the humans' devices activated, throwing the entire Zinthor fleet into chaos. The flagship, once a symbol of the Zinthor's dominance, was now vulnerable. The humans' mission was a success. But the cost was high. As the humans made their escape from the flagship, the Zinthor's forces retaliated fiercely, desperate to regain control. The humans had made their mark, but the war was far from over. The turning point had come, but it had only opened the door for an even larger confrontation. Back on the Quran homeworld, Lyra watched as the Zinthor fleet faltered, their once perfect coordination in ruins. For the first time in the war, there was hope. Humanity had shown them that even the most powerful enemy could be brought to its knees with courage, strategy, and anger. And Lyra knew one thing for certain: this was just the beginning. The Zinthor had underestimated humanity, and now they would pay the price. The battle was not yet won, but the humans had proven that they were a force to be reckoned with. The war was no longer just a fight for survival, it was a fight for victory. And humanity's fury would be the weapon that tipped the scales. With the destruction of the Zinthor flagship, the empire that had once ruled with an iron fist began to unravel. The heart of the Zinthor forces had been destroyed, and their vast AI-controlled fleet was in disarray. What had once seemed like an unstoppable force was now a shadow of its former self. The humans, aided by their Quran allies, pushed forward relentlessly, their victory assured but still hard-earned. The Zinther collapse. The Zinther Empire, built on AI supremacy and fear, was now crumbling. In the wake of General Ward's sacrifice and the destruction of their flagship, the remaining Zinther forces lacked direction and leadership. Their AI-controlled machines were without purpose, and their once powerful warships, now uncoordinated, were easily taken down. The humans and Qurans pressed on, targeting the last pockets of resistance, dismantling the AI leadership that had terrorized the galaxy for so long. With every battle, the Zinther's grip on the galaxy loosened. Human warships, now emboldened by the loss of so many of their own, fought with a ferocity that left the Zinther stunned. Cities that had once been fortified with the best technology in the galaxy now stood as silent monuments to the Zinther's downfall. As each base fell and each stronghold was obliterated, it became clear, the Zinther Empire was finished. The camera zooms through battlefields where AI-controlled soldiers are now a mere shadow of their former selves, overwhelmed by the determined humans and their Quran allies. The human forces, once the underdogs, were now the ones to be feared. The Zinther's fall wasn't swift, but it was inevitable. Humanity's anger, once a weapon, had become their strength, their key to victory. Victory for humanity. The final push came quickly. With the Zinther forces in disarray and their leadership destroyed, the humans and Qurans made their way to the heart of the empire. The last remnants of the Zinther, trapped in their cities, were quickly wiped out. The humans moved with purpose, their actions fueled not just by the fury of battle but by the desire to ensure that the Zinther's reign of terror would never return. When the last Zinther fortress fell, the humans and Qurans stood side by side. They had achieved the impossible, they had defeated the galaxy's most powerful empire. The cost, however, had been great. General Ward, the heart of humanity's resistance, was gone, and so were many other brave soldiers. Their sacrifice had paved the way for this victory, and their legacy would live on in the hearts of those who survived. Lyra, once a scout from a peaceful race, now stood as a symbol of the alliance between the humans and Qurans. She had seen her people pushed to the brink of extinction, but now they were free, thanks to the fury and courage of humanity. The camera pans over the battlefield, showing the human and Quran forces standing victorious amidst the ruins of the Zinther Empire. Though they had won, the war had taken its toll on both sides. The symbol of hope. The human's fury, which had once burned hot with vengeance, now became a symbol of hope. Across the galaxy, the story of humanity's resilience spread like wildfire. The Qurans, once desperate for help, now stood as allies of the humans, their lives saved by the very species that the Zinther had so despised. Humanity's anger had been harnessed into something far greater than destruction, it had become a force that brought freedom to the galaxy. The humans didn't just defeat the Zinther, they crushed their vision of AI supremacy. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson, that no matter how powerful AI became, it would never replace the will and determination of living beings. The humans had shown that, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds, a united species could rise up and overcome any foe. Emotional resolution. Amid the celebrations, Lyra couldn't forget the faces of those who had fallen in the fight. She made her way to a quiet spot on the Quran homeworld, where she stood before the graves of the fallen soldiers, Bonner among them. His sacrifice, like that of many others, was what had made the victory possible. The camera follows Lyra as she kneels by his grave, her hand brushing the earth, a symbol of respect for the brave soldier who had fought and died by her side. "I will never forget you, Bonner," she whispers, her voice choked with emotion. "Your courage will live on in every person we've saved, in every battle we fought, and in every life we will now protect." Lyra looks around, seeing the Qurans rebuilding their cities, their once ruined planet now alive with hope. They had been saved, and they had humanity to thank for it. The Qurans, though mourning the loss of their people, had found new strength in their alliance with the humans. Their gratitude was evident in every handshake, every word of thanks. They now saw the humans not as distant strangers, but as true allies, brothers and sisters in arms. The camera pulls back, showing Lyra standing alone for a moment, reflecting on the long journey. She had started as a scout, unsure of humanity's strength, but now, she understood their power. It was not just their technology or their weapons that made them strong, it was their hearts. They fought for those who could not fight for themselves, and they had won. As the scene fades, we hear Lyra's voice in the background, narrating the future of the galaxy. The Zinthar may have been defeated, but the galaxy is still a place of constant struggle. We may never be at peace, but now, we fight not for vengeance, but for the future. The camera fades to black, the sound of distant battles echoing in the background, as humanity's fury and the Quran's gratitude stand as lasting symbols of hope and victory in a galaxy that would never forget their struggle. The galaxy was forever changed. The Zinthar Empire, once an unstoppable force, lay in ruins, its AI-controlled machines and tyrannical leadership shattered. The humans and their Quran allies stood victorious, but the war had taken a heavy toll on all. The battle for freedom was over, but the struggle to rebuild had only just begun. The peaceful Qurans, who had once been on the brink of extinction, now worked alongside humanity to restore their homeworld and the galaxies they had once ruled. The once barren Quran cities were now being rebuilt, using the combined knowledge of the Qurans and humans. The ruins of the Zinthar's advanced technology were scavenged and repurposed to help rebuild, not just Quran society but other planets that had suffered under Zinthar rule. With every brick laid, every structure rebuilt, and every life saved, a new era was taking root. The Qurans were not alone in their gratitude. As news of the victory spread, races from across the galaxy, some who had once feared humanity, began to come forward, offering their support and pledging to stand together in this new alliance. It wasn't just the Qurans who owed humanity a debt. The victory over the Zinthar was a victory for all. The idea of unity had begun to take root, and now many races saw the strength of that unity as the key to ensuring the peace that the galaxy had long been denied. Humanity's survival had been improbable. For so long, the Qurans had looked to Earth as a lost cause, a forgotten world. But in the end, it was humanity's fury that had turned the tide. Now, in the quiet aftermath of battle, there was a profound sense of accomplishment. The Zinthar's reign of terror had ended, and for the first time in centuries, the galaxy had a chance to rebuild, free from oppression. The legacy of fury. As the galaxy healed, the legends of the humans who had fought the Zinthar spread far and wide. In every corner of the galaxy, tales of the humans' bravery, their fierce resolve, and their unwavering determination to fight for the weak and oppressed became a symbol of hope. The humans had started the war as underdogs, technologically inferior and outmatched by the Zinthar's advanced AI. Yet, through sheer will, they had destroyed one of the most powerful empires the galaxy had ever known. The humans' legacy wasn't just in the battles they had won or the enemies they had defeated. It was in the spirit they had shown, the spirit of never giving up, of fighting for something greater than themselves. Despite their lack of advanced technology, they had proven that rage, if harnessed properly, could be more powerful than any machine. Their victory reminded everyone that sometimes, the greatest weapon a species has is not the technology they possess but the strength of their spirit. As humanity settled into this new era, they became more than just survivors, they became teachers, leaders, and allies to the rest of the galaxy. The once feared species now held the respect and admiration of all. They showed that even the most technologically advanced civilizations could be brought down by the will of a determined, resourceful people. The Zinthar had ruled through fear, but humanity had triumphed through hope and fury, becoming a symbol of defiance against oppression. Final scene. The camera fades in to show Lyra standing on the edge of a vast Quran city, now bustling with life. The once silent streets are now filled with activity, Qurans and humans working side by side, their unity palpable. Above her, the sky is clear, and the stars that once felt so distant now seem closer than ever. The world is at peace, but Lyra knows that peace is fragile. As she gazes upward, her mind travels back to the battles they fought, to the sacrifices made, and to the friends who would never return. She thinks of Bonner, General Ward, and all those who had fallen. Their legacy would live on, not just in the stories told across the galaxy, but in every life saved, in every victory earned, and in every alliance formed. But Lyra also knows that peace doesn't last forever. The galaxy is vast, and new threats will always arise. Yet, she's no longer afraid. Humanity has proven that no matter the odds, they will always stand tall. Their fury, once their greatest weakness, has become their greatest strength, and that fury will be passed down through the generations, ensuring that humanity will always be ready for whatever challenge comes next. As the camera pans out, Lyra's voice fills the background, her words echoing a sense of resolve for the future. The war is over, but the fight is never truly done. We have won this battle, but there are always new wars to fight, new battles to win. The galaxy may never be at peace, but as long as we stand together, we will fight for the future. And no matter what comes, the fury of humanity will always be our greatest weapon. The screen fades to black, the words, "The Fury of Humanity," written in bold letters across the screen. The image lingers for a moment, a reminder that, while the story may have ended, humanity's legacy has just begun.